all these things that we're going to talk about today are in all our software in the PredictWind app. So that's what you use when you're on land or in the marina, or just really close to the coast and cell phone coverage. These features are all now in the Offshore app as well, which is pretty cool that you can make some of the changes that you weren't able to make before in the Offshore app, and do that while you're at sea. So it's very cool. Great update. We're going to cover this off basically on the web version today, just for simplicity. Many of the functions are the same wherever you are. So I'm going to come down to our tools here in the menu, and I'm going to go to weather routing. And we will start by looking at our preferences. So if you haven't seen this, if you don't have access to this, in the mail out we sent to you letting you know about these new features, there was a link to a free trial. That link is still active. So if you want to if you haven't got a standard or pro subscription, click on that link and you can do the trial. I think it's for a week. So I will jump over here. Obviously we're in weather routing. If I was in the ocean data or the departure planning tools, the functions, the buttons are all in the same place. I'll just move my zoom controls right up to the top there. Move that one there because that's in my way. So we're in weather routing, and I think before we get into any of the interface stuff, we will go into the routing preferences up here at the top of the screen, and we will jump into polars. So there is a few new things in here. One is you can see your polar. We've got a predefined polar here, and we can see what that looks like, what that polar looks like on the polar graph. Upwind, downwind adjustments, they've been there for a while in the polar speed adjustments. So that changes the percentage up or down speed of your polar across the board. This here jumped in there yesterday, tack and jibe penalties. Probably more of a race feature than a cruising feature, but the weather router that we have here is, we did a validation study. We compared it against other weather routers and some of the racing software, and it does a better job. So obviously there will be racing sailors using this. Having a tack and jibe penalty in there is pretty important. And so that's just how much slower it is. It'll penalize you a period of time for each time you do a tack or jibe. As I say, not really a cruising option, but definitely if you're racing, a nice one to have. So we'll come down here to our polars. Obviously, we've talked about polars a lot in the past. We can select our predefined polar from the list here. There's a big list. Polars are really important. You want to get your polar to to be close to your boat's performance. I can't emphasize how much you should focus on this. It is important, and we've tried to make this easier to do. Obviously, if you're in a powerboat, you can have you can put your powerboat settings in there. Sail is a very generic polar that you can use if you're in if you're just new to the software and you haven't can't find a boat like yours and you just want to get this set up quickly. But I would recommend finding a boat that's like yours in the predefined list. And then something that we've made a big change on is the advanced polar. So this used to be a big table, and obviously it still is, but it's just a lot easier to control now. You can add more columns or rows for the different wind speeds and boat speeds. You can come in here and you can adjust it, and you'll see if I adjust this, if I change these angles, you'll see my polar curve changing at the same time. So it's as easy as that to change these values in here, and you know, make your boat, make the polars representative of what the speeds your boat does. So you can come across here and you can adjust these. It's not hard to do, and you'll see the adjustments are made on the chart over here. And you see I've made the chart look a bit funny there because I've just randomly been doing stuff. We'll go back to my predefined polar, and yeah. Oh, sorry. I should also say that again, probably if you have had a polar that you've used in another piece of software, you can import it into here, or you can actually also export your polar. So again, probably more of a racing feature, but I mean, everybody, I would recommend that you really get into your polars. You know, you don't need to sail your boat much to know how fast it goes in certain conditions, and just keep tweaking it to how you sail your boat. It's not necessarily what the designer thinks, it's how you sail your boat. So get that accurate. Now, so this is sort of the big, one of the big features that we're here for today is depth avoidance. This is pretty cool. So your routing can be calculated on depth contours. So we have depth contours for the entire world. They come from CMAP, so a reputable company when it comes to that sort of data. And so the weather router is whichever contour you choose here, the weather router will use that in its calculations. And this just gives you more accurate routes. If it's, you know, obviously if your route is taking you across waters that you can't sail in, it's losing its effectiveness and its accuracy. If you want to, you can still go back to land, which is what it used to be. And then you can change these contours 2 meters, 5 meters, 10 meters, and so on. I'll leave it on 10 meters because I want to show you something in a little bit, and that's just an easy way for me to show how that works. And yeah, but so essentially my router won't go into waters that are less than 10 meters deep, and the start and finish waypoints will actually automatically move themselves to be in water that depth. Obviously, the caveat there is, you know, you always need to be responsible for your route and where you're going, and you know, use your seamanship there. This is, you know, we're not saying, oh, if you know, follow your weather route and you're safe. It's, you know, seamanship always. So we'll leave that at 10 meters. We can adjust that later as well if we want to. I mean, we might want to use a 5 meter contour, would seem more sensible to me, but I've got an example I want to show you. Here, tidal and ocean currents, we can turn it on and off, and you can select which ocean current model the weather router is going to use. So that is both standard and pro users can now do this. The difference being is the pro users can see the grids. They can, you know, see whereabouts you might be hitting these currents, and that obviously it's makes for a better weather route if it uses if it's calculated for the standard users, and so that's why we've done that. But you can select which model you use. You will see the outputs in the tables, and yeah, so we can choose our model and turn them on and off, but we will turn them on. Something we've had down here for a while, I'm not really going to dwell on it too much. It's more of a racing yacht feature. We did this for the Vendée last year, and so basically you can scale the wind speed across all the models in your weather routing. You could say you thought that it was, for whatever reason, you thought it was going to shift 10 degrees more than what it was, or that's just what you were seeing, you could actually run a route with the wind direction adjusted or the wind scaled. So the reason people would scale the winds is obviously your routing is run off the wind grids. Wind grids are averages. They do not take into account gusts. We know gusts can be 40% higher than the averages or more. And but so some people like to scale the wind speed to say 110%. We're not going to do that. I'm going to turn them off because I just don't need the extra complication. And I think that's the main new things in here. Obviously, we still have our comfort settings in there. I don't think there's anything new in there I need to look at. Nope. We're going to go for fastest time. Oh, sorry, I missed the motoring option. Obviously, we've always had motoring options, but it's calculated on your boat speed. And so, you know, if the boat speed, sailing boat speed drops below 4 knots, we're going to turn the motor on. And so that's taking into account my motoring. I'll turn it off. Okay, so there's probably quite a bit to digest there, but yeah, the big thing there is polars and your depth avoidance. You can adjust this across all your platforms, the depth avoidance and your polars. If you want to do advanced polars, you need to do them in here. If you want to change them, you can select them in all the other platforms, but if you want to adjust the advanced polars, you do it in here. We're going to stick with what we've got there, and I'm going to go back to the weather routing. So here we have our start and finish waypoints. But you'll see there here that this map has changed somewhat. There used to be a big calculate button up here. There still was when I made a tutorial for it last week, and so now I have to make a new one, thanks to our awesome dev team. So the calculate button is now over here, which actually fits in with the other, with the Offshore app and the other pieces of software. So we're just trying to make things consistent across all the platforms. And then obviously, if I want to change my start time, I can click on this button here. I can change which time zone I'm in. That used to constantly be on the screen. You know, feedback from customers, they wanted to see more map, and so we're working on giving you more map. And we will come in here and select our waypoints. Obviously, as I move my start waypoint around, my lat long moves. I'm just going to move my zoom controls over here, and I can move them both, and I have my start and finish waypoints. This little button here, if I click on this little button here, that will take me to my location. I'm not going to do that because I'm in New Zealand. If I was in the Offshore app and I had an Iridium Go, it will snap to my GPS position on my Iridium Go. This little button here, I just press this plus button and I can put in waypoints, and I can select whether it's a go-to, which is just this go-to, there it says go-to waypoint. I can select a port rounding or a starboard rounding. So that might be if you had a particular course that you were doing, you can set a course, you know, like a racing feature, or if just for whatever reason you wanted to, you know, round a particular area one way or another, you can add those. So if I put that in as port, I will leave that to port. I'm going to take it out because we just want to keep things simple. You will see here we have saved courses. This is, and so I've got some short courses that I've done in the past here in Auckland. And if I click on it, you'll see it takes me to to this course that I had set out for a two-handed race here in Auckland. And what we have done here, one of my colleagues, Mia, suggested that we did this after I think she did this race actually. And she said, oh, it'd be great if we could share that. So if you are doing, if you're a race organizer, or there's a bunch of you all doing particular course, you can actually export this course with all the coordinates, and you can click on the export button. It goes to your downloads folder, and then you can share it through WhatsApp or whatever, and then they can import it, so it can all be in there. Go back to there. So that's pretty cool. That's a new feature, and of course you can just save your course in there. It's not actually saving your weather route, it's saving your waypoints that you put in there. So obviously if you put lots of waypoints in and you want to save them, that's where you do it. This button here, routes, that's this sort of relates to what I was talking about before with, say you wanted to run some routes with different wind directions or wind speeds in those advanced settings. You could then come back and compare them all. So if I click on one of these previous routes, it will show me the previous route that I run. I could make some changes and compare them. Go back to my waypoints, click on that one so that I'm back where I want to be, and come up the coast here again. So I'll click close on that. Yeah, there's a lot more in there than what there used to be, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So the next thing we will look at is boundaries. So if I actually zoom out here, the boundaries have actually been in here for a while. You'll see I've got boundaries at different places around the world. I actually have all of the ice boundaries for the Vendée in there. And I can add one of these. Why would I want to do this? You know, I mean, you know, we've got depth avoidance, we've got port and starboard rounding waypoints, but there might be a particular area that we wanted to avoid. So, you know, let's say I'm coming down here. I'm going to put my start waypoint in there because I'm pretty sure that if I go in there, that'll make my depth avoidance work. But let's say, you know, I can have my depth avoidance there, but I still might not want to go into a particular area. You know, I might want to avoid any adverse current. So I can come up here, I've clicked on, actually that's on, I can click on this here. This is my boundaries icon, and I can actually click on the map and I can add this boundary in however I wish, you know, and I can drag these around and do whatever, you know, if I wanted to, that would be if I wanted to avoid current. If I click in the middle of it, I can delete the boundary. I can also disable it. So I'll delete the boundary there. Are you sure? Yes. And it's gone. But, you know, another situation where we might want it is if we're coming down the coast here and we just don't want to get into, you know, that we don't want to go too close to the land here, to the coast here for whatever reason. It could be particularly nasty area. And so we can set up this boundary, and I can come in here and I can click on it and I can drag it around a bit just so that, you know, my route is going to keep me a bit further offshore, and I'm not going to get into, you know, any dangerous waters or currents or whatever it is that I don't like it here. So you might have a bit of local knowledge that you want to, you know, that this is a bad area. You know, lots of places around the world where you want to just avoid a particular spot. So I'll click on that icon again up here, which turns it off, turns my mouse back to being a normal control again. I'm not setting boundaries anymore. And I am going to come over here, and I am going to see, I was going to go over there to look for the calculate button, but no, it's over here, and I'm going to click on calculate. So at the moment, it is calculating my weather route. It is using the 10-meter depth contour that we set up before. It is respecting my boundary that I put in here. It knows what my polars are, and obviously my start and finish waypoints. If I put some waypoints in there, that would be respecting those, and it's calculating my route. Obviously, the beauty of the PredictWind router is that it calculates this on our servers. I don't need to download the depth contours for the entire world. I don't need to download massive currents files. I don't need to download all the high resolution grids because the router is doing that on the servers. So that's particularly relevant for those for when you're doing, when you're doing your offshore passages, or you're out of cell phone range and you're using a satellite connection. Having that small file size is really important. So this is excellent. So you'll see here, I have got this errors popped up, and it's telling me that it's moved my start waypoint into deep water, and that's why I put the 10-meter contour in before, 10-meter depth contour in before, because I knew it was going to do this. And so if we zoom in here, and you'll see that it has moved my start to deeper water. So obviously 10 meters is pretty deep, and but that's it's moved it out there. So just so you know that it's done that. So yeah, it moved it from there to there. It will move it 10% of the route. Obviously, if you go crazy with it, it will fail. So, but it's very clever, and does a very good job of it. So you'll see there, it's taken me out offshore there. We come down here, and you'll see it has respected my boundary that I put in here. And obviously I could adjust that boundary to whatever I want, and away I go. So this is so what the other things that we've done is we've actually changed how this interface works quite a bit. Obviously we've still got our normal controls there, our play button. You'll see that it was going pretty fast. We can do it with the slider here, and our forward and back arrows here. But the main control is actually here. I click on this weather model button there, and I can flick between weather models, and I can change my display types. I'm on streamlines at the moment. I can go into wind barbs or wind arrows, and I can change all my parameters. I've got my rain, my cloud, air temperature, cape, wave, gust, and I can change all of those. I can change my animation speed. I loved the bunny. The bunny got made into bunny stew, I guess. But anyway, this is where we control our animation speed now. All of this has been done so that we have greater map. Obviously when we're doing this stuff, we want to be able to look at our maps. Another thing we can do here is we can toggle our routes. I can turn some off. I might not excuse me. Sometimes I might just want to look at one or two routes. I can do that. Just come up here, toggle them on and off, turn them back on for the show. So that's, what else was I looking at? Rightio, so we'll come over here and we'll go into our tables. And there's not a huge number of changes in here, but we can see what our polar has been doing. So we know what the polar is, we know what our polar speed adjustment is, we know what the motoring is, we know what current model we were using, true wind speed scale factor, true wind direction adjustment, and we have all this information in here. So we can see our currents, waves, and the atmosphere. This is new. I think actually there's some other new things here. I'll just move my zoom controls. And wind here, you will see we have the true wind speed, which is our averages, and we have the gust. And the weather route is not calculated using the gust, but if we see, the reason we've put this in here is that it's another indicator. If we see true wind speeds are really different to the gust, then we know that it's that's an indicator of things being more volatile. So big difference between the average and the gust. It's just an indicator we want to keep an eye on. So sort of towards the end of this trip here, you'll see it's getting 16 knots, 22, 23 knot gusts, 24 there. So when's that? November 26, 5:45. We can come down here and we can click on our atmosphere. And we can just see if there's any, is there cape in there? Is there rain in there? And the cape levels and the rain do get a bit higher further down there. So, we might go back to our map and have a look at it. We can also export our routes. There's some different formats here that we didn't used to have. Most software, if you want to export this into something like Navionics or iNavX or iSailor, you can export it as a GPX. You can select which route you want to export, and you can export it. But soon you probably won't need to do that because you will be able to do that in the PredictWind apps. So let's check my time. We'll go pretty quickly. I've zoomed right out there. So something that we should talk about, we'll come and have a bit more of a look at our depth contours. We might have another play with that. So something that you should know is that we are doing a charting integration. So the depth avoidance is obviously a lead into that. I mean, it's a separate thing. Obviously having the routing with a depth contour is giving us better routes, more accurate routes, but then be able to click across and need to move my zoom controls. Click across and actually just flick that route into a chart within the same piece of software is going to be pretty nice. No guarantees on when that is coming. It's a next year thing, but that will happen. So just let's flick over here to our ocean data and have a look at, again, how we could use some of these features. We could come in here and we could, we're heading down the coast here, and maybe we wouldn't want to come out that far. We'd be giving ourselves a very narrow passage there, and I guess we would, it's a tricky spot. And you can see the router is actually trying to avoid the adverse current there anyway, but again, we could put a boundary in there if we so wished. For example, like something like that. and you know, it would avoid it. But the router's doing a good job there, so we don't need to. Just trying to think what I've actually covered everything I've said I was going to cover already, I think. Just have a look at my list. Are you there, Kieran? Is there anything else that you think I should be covering off? Actually, I've actually got some other things here. There we go. So something that we probably should cover off, and I will. Yes, I want to do that, is I'm going to move my waypoint up here and come out here. Actually, let's go back to our weather routing. And we will run a really long route because I want to talk about the Ensemble forecast. And I will click calculate. Oh, and then we'll go and have a quick look at the Offshore app as well. So what I wanted to just look at here is just explain how the Ensemble works. So what we do is most of the, some weather models go to 14 days, some go to 10, some go to 7. And what we wanted to do was come up with a good solution for what happens when you go beyond that forecast period. And so ECMWF does a bunch, I think it's, I'm not even sure, it's 50 or something or other ensembles, and which is where they change a variation in the forecast model, and it gives a bunch of different outputs. So we actually average those out, and I'm not sure whether I've run a long enough route or not. Yeah, so you'll see there, it just flicked into the Ensemble. The key thing is that it is doing some averaging, so you do get quite a broad picture, but it's giving consistent data to complete the route that is, it has a better probability of happening. Often when models get out to that 14-day or beyond 10 days, the accuracy of them really does start to dive off. So it automatically changes. You cannot download the Ensemble in the Offshore app. It's too big, but you can see it in here, but it is calculating in your route. So good one to know. I will just stop sharing that one there, and I will come over here and I will share again. And I'll go into the Offshore app. So you'll see here, I've flicked over to the Offshore app, and what I just wanted to really make clear was all the controls that we've just been using. These same, the boundaries are in here, the waypoint stuff is in here. You can see I've still got my, all my routes, my saved routes are in there, and they are syncing across from one to the other. So that's pretty cool that they do that, and so are your polars are syncing across. So if I click on the download button here, and I am in my download preferences of the Offshore app, and I can come in here and I can change my depth avoidance, I can change my currents, and I can change my polar and polar percentages. We've always been able to do that, my motoring, and if I wanted to do my advanced routing adjustments, I can also do that in here. So all of the stuff that we just talked about, you can do in the Offshore app, which is pretty cool to be able to do those changes. Obviously, you can't manipulate your advanced polar. You can see there, it tells you that you've got to go to the forecast website to change your advanced polar. But if you had that set up, you can select it. So I think that's, I'll just X out of there and go next. obviously, you know, this is what the router will be using the currents if you're in standard or pro, but if you want to see the currents and be able to look at it, you need the pro version. So let's just cancel out of there. And yeah, so same controls are here. One difference we do have in here is this little round button here. That is the now button. That takes me to the current time. So yeah, it took me to the time here now. So that's the current time it's taken me to. So, but the play button and the backwards and forwards, the controls are down here on the model. We can change all our parameters, and just the same as what we looked at in the web version. So that's obviously what we've been looking to do is make, you know, when you use it on the web and then you use it in the Offshore app, to try and make it all look the same and feel the same. Obviously, in the Offshore app, we have different settings because for the downloads that we need to control for our satellite downloads. But other than that, the general UI is getting a lot closer together. If you do have other questions about this going forward, please come into support and ask some questions. And yeah, thank you very much for joining us today.